This is Chapter 9, The Long-Traveled Road, Part 3, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. The Endeavor's journey toward the orbit between Saturn and Uranus was, for the most part, uneventful. The vast emptiness of space stretched before Daniel like an infinite ocean of darkness, punctuated only by the distant glow of planets and stars. Occasionally, the ship's scanners detected small asteroids drifting near its projected trajectory, but the autonomous navigation system was more than prepared. A minor course adjustment, executed hours in advance, was all it took to ensure a safe distance of several thousand kilometers from the debris. At such speeds, even a pebble could be catastrophic. A single grain of sand, moving at a fraction of light speed, carried enough kinetic energy to punch through the hull like a bullet through paper. That was the nature of the challenge they faced. At these velocities, space itself became a minefield. But now Daniel had arrived at the solar system's space highway, a relatively empty corridor between the gravitational influences of Jupiter and Neptune. Here, the final test would begin. To safely travel at such high speeds, the ship needed more than advanced shielding. It needed eyes, a way to detect obstacles far ahead, long before they became a threat. This is where the sensor drones came in. Each drone was a small spacecraft in its own right, stripped to the bare minimum: a helium-3 nuclear fusion engine, an inertial mass offloading drive, and a powerful scanning array. No crew, no unnecessary mass, just raw function. They were roughly the size of a small car, tiny by interstellar standards, but what they lacked in size, they made up for in purpose. For this first test, 3 sensor drones had been deployed, each positioned 15 light minutes apart, forming a staggered line that extended nearly a light hour ahead of the Endeavor. This arrangement would provide Daniel with ample buffer time for course corrections, creating an unprecedented early warning system. In human terms, it was akin to driving a high-speed train through an unknown tunnel, with scouts running miles ahead to warn of any incoming obstacles. Now, all 3 drones were racing toward their final velocity, and soon it would be Daniel's turn to join them. Daniel's voice came through the comms, steady as ever. Endeavor to command control. All 3 sensors have been deployed successfully. Readings are stable, requesting final confirmation to proceed with the final stage. Ellie inhaled sharply. Her hands, steady despite the storm raging inside her, flew across the control panel as she double-checked the readings. Everything was functioning exactly as expected, and yet she was terrified. Any miscalculation, any unforeseen variable, and this could go horribly, irreversibly wrong. She forced herself to speak, keeping her voice as even as possible. Acknowledged. A beat of silence. All readings match our expectations. The first sensor will reach target velocity in 10 hours. The others are following at the projected intervals. She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Then, unable to hold back her fear any longer, she added, "Daniel, do you detect anything out of the ordinary? We're still in time to abort. We can run the sequence again. No need to rush." She knew it was a hollow offer. Daniel had waited his whole life for this moment. There was no way he would back down. And still, she had to try. Daniel chuckled softly, shaking his head. His face was calm, his expression unshakable. "Ellie," he said, voice filled with quiet certainty, "we've done this 1,000 times with the drones. We accounted for everything we possibly could. Now it's time for the truth." His gaze softened, his confidence never wavering. "I trust you with all my soul, and I know we're going to make it. No doubt in my mind." Ellie exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the console as if it could anchor her. "Why do you have to be so damn good at making me feel safe?" she murmured under her breath. A pause. Then, summoning every last ounce of courage within her, she spoke the words that would seal his fate. "Command control to Endeavor. You have green light to engage to 90% light speed." Daniel smiled. That smile, the one that had carried her through the darkest days, the one that had made the vast emptiness of space feel a little less cold. "Roger," he acknowledged smoothly, engaging launch protocol in 20 seconds. Then he turned to the camera once more. His gaze locked onto Ellie's, as if she was the only person in the universe. "Ellie, we'll talk in 10 hours, and I'll tell you all about the wonders I see." 5 seconds. The biological reinforcement compounds surged through Daniel's body, another round of the advanced formula designed to withstand the unimaginable G-forces that were about to hit him. 4 seconds. Across Earth and the Moon, every surviving human had stopped what they were doing. All eyes were locked on the transmission. This was the moment that could change everything. 3 seconds. Inside the Endeavour, the helium-3 nuclear fusion engine and the inertial mass offloading drive hummed to life, awaiting the command to unleash their full power. 2 seconds. Daniel checked the readings one last time. The sensor drones ahead were functioning perfectly. Every calculation, every variable, had aligned just as Ellie predicted. He had never doubted her. He knew how brilliant she was. In fact, he knew it better than she did. 1 second. Ellie's breath caught in her throat. Unlike the others, her fear was not just for the system she had designed, not just for the mission. She was fighting against something far more personal. The terror of losing the man she loved. The weight of it pressed against her chest, threatening to break her. She didn't know how much more of this she could take. But there was no stopping now. Liftoff. The Endeavour surged forward, accelerating under the force of 20 Gs. Unlike the crushing 40 G launch he had endured days earlier, this time the pressure was more manageable, though still enough to keep his body firmly pinned in place. For the next 10 hours, Daniel's body would endure the relentless force of acceleration until the ship reached its target velocity of 90% the speed of light. His movements were limited, but not completely restricted. He could still operate the controls, speak, and make minor adjustments if needed. However, for the most part, all he could do was wait, let the systems work as designed, and trust that the plan, years in the making, would hold true. Barely 20 seconds after launch, Daniel confirmed what everyone had hoped to hear. Endeavour to command control, all systems in green. His voice remained steady, composed, filled with a quiet confidence that had carried him through every mission before this. The offloading inertial mass drive is performing at 95% capacity. Fuel consumption of the helium-3 nuclear drive is holding at a stable 2%. By the time we hit 90% of light speed, total fuel depletion is projected at just 10% of reserves. He let out a small chuckle. So far, so good. With your permission, I think I'll chill out for a bit. Maybe even take a nap. He grinned, adding, "Great job, people." Ellie exhaled, finally allowing herself to breathe. "Command control to Endeavour. I'll take care of the rest from here. Sweet dreams, my love." A wave of relief washed over the command center. Cheers erupted across the moon base and Earth's underground settlements, though more subdued this time. The excitement was there, but so was the understanding. This wasn't the final step. They had to keep their focus. The next milestone was the most critical of all. For the first time in history, a human was approaching relativistic speeds. Thanks to quantum entanglement communication, mission control on the moon could monitor the ship's systems in real time, unaffected by the time dilation that would soon take hold. By the time Daniel reached 90% light speed, the relativistic effects became significant. His time was now running 2 times slower than people on the moon. For every hour that passed aboard the Endeavour, 2 hours passed for Ellie, Leo, and the rest of humanity. This was the true challenge of deep space travel. Not just speed, not just distance, but the fracturing of time itself. However, thanks to the entangled quantum computers guiding the mission, course corrections remained unaffected by the relativistic delays. No matter how fast the ship moved, the autonomous systems on the moon base could process navigation data and send instantaneous adjustments, ensuring Daniel stayed on the safest trajectory possible. The instantaneous quantum computing system, humanity's lifeline in near light speed travel, was about to face its greatest test. That was Chapter 9, The Long-Traveled Road, Part 3, from a story called The Time-Dilated Generations, by Esteban Gallardo. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you again next time.